I thought I knew all of it, and I bombed it. And all of a sudden, I let down everybody. Let down myself, my family, my boss. I actually didn't tell anybody but my wife for quite a while. Um, didn't know how I would even keep going.
You are listening to the Go Earn Your Salt podcast brought to you by Salt Electrolytes. On this podcast, your host Riley Rogers, that's me, explores the stories of people who get after it, get things done, and earn their salt. You will hear from high achievers who discuss what makes them tick, how they got to where they are today, and where they are headed tomorrow. Perhaps this podcast will help you go earn your salt. Today, I welcome, one of my best friends in the world, Trevor Broughton. Trevor, I'm super excited to have you on the show, man. We've lived a lot of life together, and a big chunk of it at a distance, but still, man, we just always can pick up right where we left off at any given time. So, and I highly value friendship. I'm looking forward to talking to you on the podcast today. Welcome to the show, man.
Likewise, thank you, my friend. I'm nervous as all get out, but I'm also excited because I get to hang out with you, whether it be across the bloody internet or hanging out
Well,
in the
it's
woods somewhere.
It's
So,
funny, man. We have these conversations, on a private, personal level all the time, where we're just chit chatting and shooting the breeze and talking engines and dirt bikes and fishing and whatever. But it'll be fun to have people get to listen in on some of the shenanigans we get to talk about. So
it'll be interesting at least.
yeah, man. Well, listen. Talk to the audience here. Tell us about your growing up, where you grew up, what life looked like as a kid.
Mm. Starting out, McCall, Idaho. So lived there till I was, I want to say 11 or something like that, 11 or 12. And life was good. The trees up there, the lake. We rode our bicycles all over the woods. We we hiked the woods. We just really never were inside. And the house was so small that my mom never let me inside anyway. So it was good to have places to go. So I grew up just pedaling everywhere I went. We'd jump off the docks into the lake. We'd ride the woods. We'd go get lost in the trees. It was a good childhood.
Beautiful.
Um, yeah. Then my dad took a job in Pocatello, Idaho. That was a little less exciting. I won't say less exciting, but less enjoyable. Desert, um, Southwest, just not my cup of tea for a lot of years. Um, different, let's say, different demographic too. So I guess it was a good experience moving down there. Met a lot of people. Went to high school there. Met you there. Met my wife in a coffee shop my senior year. So we weren't married yet, but of course, that 3 years later that did happen. So that was pretty good.
How
I
old were
tried to
you when
go
you
to
moved away
college
from
there.
McCall?
I was 12, I think.
Okay. So you were just getting ready to go into
Yeah.
junior high, huh?
Yeah, man. The worst time of any kid's life, right?
I mentioned on another episode that when I was 12 years old, 2 days before I started junior high school, I was expecting to go in there and be talking to all the babes and, all these older gals that I thought were smoking hot. And 2 days before that, I rolled a four-wheeler over on my face and knocked my front teeth out and ended up with 39 stitches in my chin and walked in there a bloody swollen mess instead of the stud I thought I was. So
Well, that's what four wheelers are good for. So
oh my gosh. Yeah, you guys will catch notes on that once in a while in this. So Trevor's been a dirt biker his whole life and on a two-wheeler. And what's the name? You have some pet names for four-wheelers, don't you?
oh man, six pack rack with wheels, goon buggy.
In
Gosh,
buggy.
there's a pile of them.
Oh crap, man. Yeah, yeah. I love it. Okay, so you're 12 years old, man, and you moved to Pocatello. Culture
Yeah.
change, and
Yeah.
you hit junior high, and now you're in high school. And you mentioned you met your wife Katie at a coffee shop. Tell me about that. Hey, has all that talk about salt electrolytes made you wonder what all the fuss is about? Have you thought, one day I'd sure like to try that stuff? If so, today's your lucky day. Salt Electrolytes is offering free samples to listeners of this podcast who have not yet tried their amazing electrolyte supplement. Head on over to goearnyourSalt.com, click the banner at the top of the page to receive your free sample today. There will also be a link in the description of this podcast. And now, let's get back to the show.
Yeah. There was a cool little Christian coffee shop in town, and I was kind of newly a Christian, so I was kind of frequenting those kind of venues. And actually, the vibe was pretty good back then in Pocatello for that kind of scene. So popped in there with some buddies. We were out spinning donuts in the mall parking lot. It was January or something like that, and stopped in for coffee one night because that's what you do. And there was my wife hanging out with a bunch of friends, and I actually thought she was quite a bit older than me, and thought she was married to the guy next to her that she was hanging out with. And turns out he was just a friend, and he was actually married to somebody else. So, um, yeah. And then what, a week, maybe 2 weeks later, she ends up calling me. That was pretty cool. A little
Oh,
less work on my end. Yeah.
when was that? What year was that?
I was a senior in high school, so 1995, 96, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, man. So that was shortly before we met.
Yeah.
We, I
Yeah.
kind of had the impression that you and Katie had been dating for quite a while before that, but that wouldn't have been very long before you and I. And
No, it was real soon before her birthday, which is in Feb. So yeah, it was pretty quick.
shoot, dang. Um, okay, so you guys met, and you said 3 years later you got married, so you had a
Yeah.
reasonable amount of dating time.
Yeah. It was young and dumb kids. I proposed pretty dang quick, which was just ridiculous, but that's what you did when you were, you know, 17, 18 years old back then. So,
Defined pretty
but we didn't
quick.
get married for another 3 years, so it was a long engagement, if you will.
So
But
you were
then
at
I
the
had friends like you guys getting married, and I had other friends getting married, so it just seemed like their thing to do back then.
well, I think that is the thing to do when we're all 18
Yeah,
years old, 20 years old. And,
yeah.
um, at the time you were working I'm trying to remember how your work life went, because you did
Oh,
landscaping for a while, but then you did some rain gutter for a while. And
yeah. I was all over the map. So I actually started when I was like 15, moving pipe for my buddy's dad, or my dad's buddy. Um, John Olmsted, I want to say was his name, and he owned a little ranch out south of town. Actually north of town, forgive me, out near the reservation.
uh,
And he raised miniature ponies, and he had quite a bit of land. So my dad would drive me out there because I was too young to drive at 5 in the morning, and I would put together sprinkler pipe for 3 or 4 hours in the morning.
man,
And that was
for
kind of
folks
fun.
for folks who don't know Pocatello is very agricultural. So you have the town itself, but then I mean it's just straight up bordered by agriculture for 100 miles in every direction. So yeah, moving pipe was a thing a lot of us did.
Picking rock, picking rye. I used to go to McNabb Farm with a buddy of mine and pick rye. And in a wheat field, there was always some mixture of seeds that go in, and so you'd be able to walk the fields early in the morning. You're soaking wet. It's cold as crap, and the rye stands just a bit taller than the wheat, so you're able to pull that and put it in a sack on your back and just kind of clean the fields.
Shoot, man. Well, I
Yeah.
never got to participate in that, but I did some bucking hay, and that was a good time.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That is. Makes you strong real quick, man.
Yeah, for real. For real. I was pretty thankful I didn't have to do a lot of that, but those guys who did were some tough sons of guns, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then after that, I joined Kimberly Nurseries. I got a job on the sprinkler crew over there. and I was the greenest of green. I was, 17, 18 years old, digging ditches with these guys, and it was the craziest group of people. I mean, I had a bunch of the felons in their orange jumpsuits digging with me, and I had guys going to school for their PhDs. I had people with PhDs and master's degrees digging with me, and it was just the craziest group of people. And
Wow.
you know, guys smoking weed in the trench, and they see me watching them, and they're like, "If you say anything, we'll kill you." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool. I'm just a kid. I'll go over here and dig this hole instead."
Yeah, you believed them when there was a trench already dug that they
Oh
might have put
yeah,
you in, huh?
yeah, yeah. That ditch witch, man.
Whew. Um, so you went from there to the rain gutter world.
No, actually, I did a couple of transitions there. For some reason, one of the gals who ran the nursery actually liked me. And she gave me a job on the off season in the nursery, just kind of working on plants and waterfalls and building bridges and doing kind of random projects around the greenhouse. And so then in the summer, she kept me on instead of sending me out with the sprinkler crew. I just stayed in the nursery and, learned trees and plants and flowers. Just some really cool experience learning all about the zones that we were in and the watering and just kind of the plant types. It was kind of fun.
I remember
Um,
you and I building a water feature, little rock fountain
yeah,
formation.
man.
What was that for? I don't remember.
It was a display, and I ended up planting moss and all kinds of things on it, and having little displays for flowers and other kinds of plants. Uh, it was terrible. I mean, I look back and I'm like, these people were insane for giving this kid just the shot to just go wire these massive red lava rocks to this framework that he scabbed together out of scrap in the backyard. And and then I ran a pump and a couple of pumps, and it turned out okay, but I still kind of look back and think it was crap.
Well, when it's your first project you've ever done like that, we had a good time
Yeah.
doing it.
Oh yeah, it was a good time. Um, And then from there, yeah, I tried my hand at landscape design because I had started drafting at Idaho State University in their drafting class, and the management found out that I knew how to draw, and so they hired me as a landscape designer, which was a terrible idea on their hand. Um, I ran around, drove around, and talked to people about their yards and drew some things. And the guy who was managing that, he was upset that I was kind of coming in on his own, and so there was no help given. Like I was literally on my own, and I floundered bad. Um, Probably cost the company some money on some jobs, and you know how that is trying to estimate when you don't know what you're doing, and maybe you don't. I don't know.
Oh, buddy, I've done a lot of estimates.
I know you have. But at the end of that season, the owner of the company kind of came to me and he goes, "You know what? Yeah, this isn't going to work. You can go back to the nursery, but you're not going to be doing this anymore." And I think that's the one and only time I think I've ever been let go. So,
I don't know that I knew that part of the story. You kept that pretty close to your vest because yeah, you never
well,
told me that
there's a
they
pride thing
cut you
there.
loose that way.
Yeah. So it was all good. And then I did. I don't know how I got the job over at ABC, doing seamless steel gutters, hanging them over my head all day and year round. That was pretty wild. Hanging up there on a ladder in the rain and snowstorms and hanging these gutters and trying to get them hung and level before before they filled up with water, dumped all over your head.
They get heavier when they're full
Um,
of water, huh?
Yeah, yeah. When, the first thing the owner of that company said to me, he's like, "This is so easy. The only thing you need to know is water runs downhill." And I
It's
went,
true. It
"Okay,
runs
well,
downhill.
that's cool." It it is, except in Pocatello. There's some really weird houses where The bubble on the level says it's flowing downhill, but the water ain't going there. So
Oh man.
I don't know what to say. Maybe it's a vortex or something.
Yeah, there's probably some kind of a gravitational anomaly going on there. Um, I remember when we were working on the parsonage of your parents' church,
Mm, yeah.
and I remember you stuck a screw through a piece of gutter, but you were holding it, not quite paying attention, and put a screw through your finger. That still stands out to me as probably one of the more. I mean, I've shot myself with nail guns, and it just goes in fast and
Hmm.
clean, right? The
Yeah.
screw did not seem clean. That seemed like it would be terribly painful.
It wasn't great, but it also wasn't the worst thing I felt. I was hanging on the corner of the roof, right? I was leaning over the edge of the roof and I was trying to screw the end cap on. And I put the screw in and my finger was just right underneath it and it shot right through my middle finger. We're like all the way down in. And I remember a sharp pain and I tried to pull my finger away and I couldn't get my finger off the gutter. So I was stuck pretty good. So I had to put the drill in reverse and back it out.
Oh my
And
gosh,
then I
man.
remember sitting there for a little bit, just draining blood into the gutter, trying to figure out how to stop this thing from bleeding.
It
But
was inside the
working with
gutter.
sheet
No.
metal and stuff, that happens. Everybody gets cut up. Your fingers and your hands are just they become leather, right? Big bulletproof leather gloves, and you don't worry about that stuff anymore.
What's funny you bring that up because um, the audience doesn't know this, but at the same time you were doing gutter, I was working for a competing seamless steel siding company, and I didn't do gutters, but I did the siding part. And yeah, I remember. You remember after you get started working with sheet metal and you sit in a hot tub or just a bathtub and your hands swell up like raisins, but all your cuts
Hmm.
now show, and you had
Hmm.
300 cuts on your hand you didn't even realize you had. It's just constant.
Uh, Everything opens up, and
Yeah, so that's a wild.
but you
That's a,
got some rad forearms. That's the great part about sheet metal work. Running tin snips on both sides, man. Your grip is second to none at that
yeah,
time.
yeah. It's siding guys and tin snip guys and dairy cow milkers, which
Yeah,
they don't even do that anymore.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, man, that was a wild time of life. It's funny because I'm 18 years now away from my sheet metal work, but my grip is still legit.
I tend to have an okay grip myself,
Yeah, yeah.
so
I don't think that all the way
I
goes
don't know
away.
why it stuck around, but I'm thankful for it. Saved me a couple of times.
Yeah, all my jujitsu buddies always whine about my collar grips. Dang it! When you get
Yeah.
those, I can't get them off. Yeah, it's exciting, man. uh, so talk about
Oh,
where you ended
that's
up. So
fantastic.
you didn't continue on there,
Um,
obviously, and you took a different career path. And
no,
what that
no,
look like?
I I had this wild hair. I knew I needed to do something. I was actually talking to my dad one time, and he was asking me what I was going to do because I was still living in his house, and he was like, "Yeah, we got to do something. Either you got to go to school or you got to go. Figure out what you want to do." I don't. It wasn't brutal like that, but it was matter of fact, right? And kind of prodding his son along to get up and figure something out. So I liked what he did. He was a detective for the state of Idaho, undercover, plainclothes cop, unmarked car, cool stuff in the trunk. I loved that. I thought that was really, really cool. And I said, well, I'll go to post. I'll do what you did and kind of be like you. And he goes, if there's one thing I ask, it's that you don't do this.
Well, okay, I want to just chip in here and give you a second because I hear that emotion coming because you lost your dad here a few years ago. Um, he was a great man, and so that prodding you're talking about of him kind of nudging you forward, but also helping you as a young man to understand that that line of work is not just the cool guns and the cool kit and
Yeah.
and
All the
taking down
cool
bad
stuff.
guys.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of other
Yeah.
stuff that goes along with that, and so
Oh, absolutely. And he knew he could see where law enforcement was going and where the politics were going. And he just knew that It was not ever going to get better, you know? So he was wise. Yeah, I appreciated that.
Yeah, man.
Not
Yeah.
at the time because I was like, dude, I want to do cool stuff. But, you know, so I started looking around and thought, well, I like to draw. And I don't really like people that much, so which also another good reason I didn't go be a cop. But um I like to draw, and I had an okay class in high school that I drafted in. And so Idaho State had this cool program where it's drafting and design. And so I'm like, okay, well, they say they've got, the marketing material, right, of all these colleges is 100% placement rate. You're going to make all this money as soon as you graduate. It's great. So I got into this class. I actually had to take a bunch of remedial math classes before I got into this class because I was horrible at school. Like I barely crawled out of high school, man. By the
Yeah,
skin
me
of my
too.
teeth, I got out of high school. School just wasn't my jam.
Yeah.
So I got into this class though, a couple of and what was funny is half my high school graduating class was in these remedial math classes. So I'm like, maybe it wasn't me all the way. Maybe there was some failure in the education system back then. I don't know. But got in and did 2 years in that class, and it's one of my I I did okay in parts of it, and I utterly failed in others. And my focus was elsewhere. I wanted to get married. I wanted to go play softball and rugby and football in the summer when summer school was going on, and there were other things to do. There was dirt biking and there was mountain biking and there was hunting and all the great stuff that Idaho is good for. And one of my biggest regrets is I didn't actually finish that program. I was a couple credits short. I didn't finish my math exam because I just didn't think there was any chance in the world that I was gonna pass that class. So I just walked away. And seriously, one of the dumbest things I've ever done in my life, and I still regret that all the way now. You know what I mean? Not that it matters now, but it's just leaving things undone, if that makes any sense.
So, man, I think we all have those things, every kind of go-getter type person I've interviewed and not even just on this podcast, but over the years, always has that thing in the background. One of the common things that you mentioned is just kind of struggling with the school, the way public school system operates. Being chained to a desk all day as a young man, that's almost impossible. And if they're entrepreneurial minded, forget it, man. It's like those people generally do not thrive there. That there's exceptions always, but I,
Oh,
I
absolutely, man.
yeah, but there's those things that you leave undone, and sometimes we honestly struggle with those way longer than we should. Because you said something there that I thought was super important is that kind of haunts you even still now, even though it doesn't matter anymore, right?
Yep. Yep.
But it still freaking bothers you. And so, talk about that a little bit. What bothers you about that, and why do you think people hang on to those kind of things?
I don't know why. I've always been driven that way to where I need to do it perfectly. Have you ever taken those tests, whether they be online or written or whatever, that tell you what side of the brain you do most of your thinking on, or this or that? Um, I don't know how legit they are. I don't put too much water in them, other than every single test I've ever taken splits my brain right down the middle. Like I am dead nuts 50% left, 50% right. I find that amusing because I see that in my world now is that I am super, super creative. I get into the flow, I get into the groove, and I can just jam in the creative mode. Um, and then there's days when all I do is pick up the minutia of my job and find the nuts and bolts and figure out how a detail is going to work and how something goes together. And so I think that's kind of fun, and maybe there is some legitimacy to these things. I don't know, but I think that that engineer side, that side of my brain that's so detail oriented is just it's so against failure that that still haunts me. I think. I don't know.
No, I dig that, man. What you're saying there, because that can be. I can think of plenty of those instances in my life where I'm just like, man, why didn't I just freaking do that? And several other guests that have been on here have talked about the same thing. It's like, why did I not just
Hmm.
push that one little bump, one more little, I could have shown up for 2 more weeks. I'd have been good. I would have had the credit or whatever it is. Um, Tell me this because I haven't asked you yet. What is, for audience sake, what is your actual job now? What are you doing these days?
I am the lead architect for a firm in Ogden, Utah. We do primarily commercial projects, but also some high-end residential. But we have a little bit of a niche where we do Christian churches, and I have that because my previous job to this firm was with a company that just did churches and schools, and traveled the country and actually the world. I went down to Cali, Colombia, did a couple of other trips internationally to design some things. And I used to travel the country designing churches and schools. So that's still kind of my niche and my calling. I still want to do those. That's where the sweet spot is for me. But I love the variety now. Like I get to design all kinds of crazy stuff. It's pretty fun. So yeah, I'm the lead architect for a firm now. Been that's got to be questioning why how I got there
Well, talk
without
about how
being
you
able to
got there
finish a
because
drafting class.
yeah, talk about how you got there though because it's been a long journey, man. We're talking now. You were college age, 20 years old. Going through those
Hmm.
classes and graduating, and then crap, man. Now we're both what? You're 47 this year. Going to be 48. Is that right?
Yeah, thanks for reminding me that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm a year older than you, so there's that. But a fair amount of years has passed, and talk about what that journey has looked like until to this lead architecture position. Hey, business owners, I want to talk to you for a second. Do you have a retail space or a pro shop inside your business? If so, I want you to know something. Your customers are buying electrolyte supplements. The problem is they're not buying them from you. Salty Electrolytes can help with that with their wholesale program. They can bring those sales to you in-house so your customers get the electrolytes they deserve from the company they love most. All you have to do is head over to goearnyoursalt.com, scroll to the bottom of the page, and click on the link that says apply for wholesale. Or it's possible that there's a link in the description of this podcast. And now, my friends, go earn your salt.
So I got a job. Um, just rewind just a touch. I got out of school and I decided that sucked. I wanted nothing to do with drafting. I didn't want to do any of that. And I got a job with an excavator. A buddy in our church was had an excavation company, Jim Estelle, and I
Jim.
got to run backhoes for a living. And I thought that was pretty doggone cool. I could read plans at least, and I could dig ditches. I had that experience, so I did that for a year, and man, that was a lot of fun. I remember doing some terribly stupid things, uh, tipping over heavy equipment and being in holes that I had no place in being in, and
Oh, crap.
had a lot of fun, learned a lot of things, and then I got a phone call one day from a engineering firm in Pocatello that that had received my resume because during school, one of the jobs was sending out resumes to local firms. And I had to do some interviews with a few, and they treated me like dirt. I remember one specific place. They're like, "Why would we hire you? You don't know anything." And I went, "It's an assignment, bro. I'm here because I'm getting credit for being here." And he was just blunt as all get out. He's like, "You have no place being here. Go away."
Wow.
Um, but this engineered systems was the firm that called me, and they said, "Hey, I've got this old resume. Are you interested?" And it was starting to get hot. You know how it is. 100 degrees out there in Pokey, and open excavator, no air conditioning. Jim always had the one with the air conditioning and heat. So I went, "Yeah, what the heck? It's worth a shot. I'm gonna go sit in an office instead." So I sat in there and actually got married, went on my honeymoon, and came back. And that very Monday, I started at Engineered. So that was, I mean, tons of things happening, one right after the other. So I started that job and walked in, and one of the guys there, my mentor, was really fun. He started on AutoCAD when he was, I don't know, when it was just born, basically. And he was the fastest drafter I've ever seen in my life. And he was the hardest dude, too. He just, perfection was his thing. So he would redline drawings and he would be like, no, I don't like the angle of that line, you know? So it was art to him and it was precision. And I kind of got into that. It wasn't learning like it was in school. It was actually doing and learning while I was doing things. And that resonates with me. So I'm learning things as I'm going through, about myself and how I learn and how I operate. And and that's one of them is that I don't learn from books and I don't learn from lectures. It's doing, getting in there and getting dirty and figuring stuff out. That's how my brain learns. So that was pretty cool. Um, a year into that, um, the church I had been going to said, "Hey, you draft. Can you design us this shed that we can keep all of our tools in? And then we're going to build a new building." And we hired this architect from Utah, and he'll stamp and review your drawings and all that. But can you just draw this shed with this picnic pavilion? So I said, yeah, why not? Again, I way over my head, didn't know what I was doing, copying details out of books.
Now pause for
But
just
man,
a
I'm
second.
just going for it.
Pause
Yeah.
for just a second because you said shed, and technically it was a shed, but it's not exactly like what people are picturing. This little 10 by 10 outbuilding. It was much larger than that, and it was a bigger structure than just a shed. We should call it a garage.
Okay. Okay. Well, we'll call it a garage. And it's, if I'm not mistaken, it's still the only building built on that property right now.
Yeah, it's still the only. It's well, last time I was there, it was still the only building. But
Yeah. So it did get built. Um, Dan came down. He was the architect that we'd hired, and he looked at my drawings, and I didn't know this at the time, but he had started a new business, and he was just looking for meat to draw, basically warm bodies. And so he said, "I'll give you a job," and I went, "Ooh, a way out of Utah, uh, or I mean, a way out of Pocatello." And I'm like, Utah's not my ideal place, but I'm willing to give it a shot. Again, no hesitation when it comes to adventure. I've never really had that problem. So a week, 2 weeks later, I gave my 2 weeks notice, and then I was here in Utah, and I started working as a drafter. I thought I was going to be doing mechanical, and turns out he thought I was going to be doing architectural. So uh, again, learning, not knowing anything about what I'm doing, but just going for it. And now because I'm doing Christian churches and schools and stuff, there's a mission. So I've got something that I can focus on. And I focused hard, man. I just it was a small company. I think I was employee number 11. We had a ragtag bunch of people. Um, most of them really didn't know what they were doing either. So it was just a whole bunch of goofballs trying to figure stuff out. And we ended up growing to, I mean, he grew this company up to about 130 strong, which is a pretty big architectural firm out here. And his business was churches and schools across the country. So I traveled and got to start going on these design charrettes, they call them. In architecture, it's a fast paced design process where, in my case, I would jump on a plane, fly out to this client, um, all over, really, and spend 3 days with them. The first day, I'd really just listen to them and their needs and try to figure out what's going on in this building, in this place. And then I'd go home and I would draw all night long and all day the next day, and the next day I would present, or the the architect over me would present. Really, I was just the CAD monkey back then, but we would present. Um, and then we'd go back and listen to them and they'd tell us, I like that, I hate that, this is wrong, this is right. We'd go back and I'd draw all night long, all day the next day, and present again. and and I would do that a couple times a month. And this was pre 9/11, so traveling was actually fun. Um, you could just walk right up to the gate, you could jump on the plane, you didn't have to strip or get fondled by TSA. You just got to get right on the plane. It was great. And it was fun. I was learning, man. I was elbows deep in this, just learning everything. It was super fun. And I got to see all kinds of different cultures. I spent a ton of time in Georgia and Kentucky and Florida and Baltimore and all over. And as I grew in that company, I kept going, and pretty soon I was running the charrettes, and I was going out without an architect, and I was just me. And sometimes you'd run in as a group of 8 people, which is super easy to do, right? And sometimes that night you'd show up and they'd mic you up and put you in front of 300 people in an auditorium, and you'd
Ooh.
present whatever you're thinking. Yeah. So I learned about public speaking, had some really incredible mentors back then that would take me to dinner afterwards and be like, "Hey, you said a lot." You said yeah. Or they'd say, "You did this really well. You try working on this. Keep your hands out of your pockets. Do this, do that. Don't do this anymore." And man, it was great. I got to learn so much. But in the meantime, I'm traveling, 2, 3 weeks out of the month. And my poor wife is sitting here in Utah with no friends, no family, she's working too. But then we have kids, and all of a sudden my kids are crying when I start to travel. And so I'm like, I got to make a change, right? I can't be gone all the time for my kids' lives. So ended up making a change there. But that was precipitated by a kind of a tough conversation with the owner at that time. Um, I'd hit him up and I said, "Hey, I really want to know where I'm going with this company." At the time, I was the lead designer. Um, and I said, I'd love to know what's next. Where do I go from here? I'm still pretty young. What's next? And he goes, "Nothing. You just keep doing what you're doing. That's your place." I'm like, "Whoa, I'm young and I've already hit the top. That's kind of lame." Um, I said, but what about getting my architecture license? I hear that you can do it through experience and this and that." And he goes, "Oh yeah, you can't ever do that. No, don't worry about it. You can't do that."
So, okay. Because,
That didn't sit so well, as you can imagine.
yeah, I can't imagine that set well at all. Plus, this is coming from a guy who you highly respect, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that kind of rocked my world a little bit. I went home and told Katie, and I'm like, "Man, this is not the end, right? I can't just do this." So I was interested in, maybe getting into the sales side, maybe getting into this, that, there's so many facets to these big companies. And I just thought, man, it's time to move on. I'd been there 12 years at that time. So I'd gone from just basically what did I say, a CAD drafting piece of meat to the guy running all the designs for the build for the company. At least on the church side, we had other people doing schools. Um, but yeah, I started looking around and I started looking at some contacts that I had, and Mark, the owner of this company, Mountain West Architects, that I'm with now, he had actually been a partner over there, and he had gone through some similar type of situations, and he had left about a year before this conversation happened, and started a firm here. And something that resonated between he and I is that we did all this work out around the country and we've never done anything in our backyard. Like we didn't know anything about our local, environment. We didn't know the planners and the inspectors. We didn't know anybody here. So that kind of started to bug both of us. And so he moved on and started this firm. And then I approached him and just said, "Hey, man, I've had this kind of realization that I'm not where I belong anymore. What do you think? Do you think I could jump in and join you?" And he's always been that guy that kind of builds everybody up. He's really fantastic that way. And yeah, he's like, "I would love to have you, but I can't afford you right now." He's like, so hang on and let me grow my business a little bit. And we stayed in touch, kept having dinner from time to time. And yeah, he did call me finally and says, "Okay, man, I think we're ready to go. Let's do
Wow.
this."
How long of a span
And
of
so
time was that?
that was probably 2 to 3 months overall. Really, it wasn't that big. So grace, gracefully, graciously, I'm glad, because that was torture. Once you've made up your mind that you're done somewhere, to keep forging forward and pushing and trying to deliver the best services, right, and be what you know is right. It's hard to push through that.
So, that's an interesting thing you just said, man. I've experienced that like in endurance races, right? Where in your mind you've got it set that, hey, the finish line should be right up around this corner, and you come around that corner, but that finish line's not for another mile or half mile or sometimes even a
Hmm.
quarter mile, but you got more than you planned on. You've checked out already, right? There's that, what do they call it,
Absolutely.
short timers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. And that's from so many years of. I mean, I did push through, and I still had happy clients when I left, but and I've still got a great relationship with all the guys there. I want that to be known, that I really do. I respect them all, love them. So they're
Well,
still
how
brothers.
did you push through that, man? Because that's, you're talking about 3 months at a place where you've mentally checked out, but yet
Yeah.
as a man of integrity, you've got to still do what you're being paid to do. So, what's that look like?
It was a little bit of torture and a little bit of just buckling down, right? Just knowing what you need to do is right. And part of it comes from, I mean, we didn't touch on it at all, but I spent my childhood kind of doing, I think, some judo, and then mountain bike racing and things where, like you said, that endurance kicks in and you've just got to go and you got to just keep finishing, or else, um, there's nobody back there in mountain bike racing back in Pokey in the 90s. There was nobody to pick you up at the end. I don't even think they had sweepers back then. So you had to finish. You just had to
Yeah.
finish.
Well,
So
it's
maybe it's some of that. I don't know.
well, you had mentioned earlier if that math credit you didn't get that ticks you off still
Hmm.
today, and I think did that play into it where you're just like, I'm not doing that again, man. I'm gonna finish this time.
Maybe, maybe subconsciously it may have, that fear of failure again, that fear of letting people down is probably my biggest flaw.
Why do you say
So
that's a flaw?
really great from a customer service standpoint, right?
Are you just talking about from like
Sorry, what was that?
why do you think that's a flaw?
Oh, because it drives me sometimes to places I don't need to be mentally, right? So, um, once I started with this firm, I, kept pushing through and it was great. And then Mark was really pushing me to go ahead and get my license because I had worked under him for a long time. So I had my hours. I mean, I've been doing this for, 20 years. So I knew what I needed to know, I thought. Um, and and he was pushing me hard. So I finally went ahead and started the process. Um, I had a lot of doubts, because I just not good at school, right? We've talked about that I just no good. So there's huge fear of failure there. Um, but I started studying, I started working my tail off, and I actually traveled to. I've got a family cabin up in the woods. So I drove my bike like 9 hours to get to this cabin, and I read this massive, massive pro practice book, um, in that week. And then I came home and I'm like, okay, I got this. I'm going to take this test. And if anybody knows the ARE, the architect exams are there's a series of 6 tests, and they're all between 3 and 6 hours long. They're brutal, frankly. So I took my first one thinking, and it was according to the internet the easy test, right? So I took my easy test and I bombed it,
Mm,
dude. I read that book. I thought I knew all of it, and I bombed it. And all of a sudden, I let down everybody. Let down myself, my family, my boss. I actually didn't tell anybody but my wife for quite a while. Um, didn't know how I would even keep going. Took me about 6 months, honestly, to get my crap back together and give it a go. And actually figured out again that I don't learn that way.
dude,
It's so crazy that you can forget that you don't learn a certain way. So I actually, by the grace of God, kind of found this really cool program that's very visually driven, and it's to help people pass the ARE, right? So I hired this firm, and it's a series of videos, and everything is sketched and animated and graphical, like an architect would probably understand. And everything freaking clicked. So I took the hardest test first, the next round, passed it.
nice.
And then I scheduled another one after a couple of weeks and passed that one, and another one and passed that. And so I'm like halfway done. But to get through this process, I'm still working a full-time job. I'm still a full-time dad. So I'm getting up at 4:30, 5 in the morning, and I'm studying. I'm watching these videos and doing the study until about 7:15, and then I jump in the shower, jump in my car, run to work, and work till 6. And then I go home and I start taking practice tests and start doing that kind of stuff. And that lasted for a couple of months. Um, and I was burned out, man. I was done. So the final 3 tests, I got a wild hair and went, I'm going to schedule one for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So I did, and I scheduled those, and that was the most brutal weekend I've ever had in my life. Just get up, study, and then hit this test for 4 hours. Um, Go to bed, study, hit the next test for 4 hours, and then the final one. And somehow I passed all 3 of them. It was
Nice.
incredible. I was just fired up and was so excited because then I got to go dirt biking later that afternoon with the kids. So it was like the perfect weekend ever.
Kind of got all the hard stuff out of the way, and
Yeah,
I
but it
find that
was that
really
driven fear of failure.
I find that really interesting, man, because like I said, we've all had those experiences where something just doesn't really go our way. And there's that feeling like you just got the wind knocked out of you. And you mentioned it taking 6 months to kind of even get your crap back together where you thought you even wanted to try again. And those times, man, I gosh, I have that experiences like that. I wasn't able to. I got sick at the beginning of this year. Wasn't able to do my jiu-jitsu black belt test, and
Mm,
and I had that same feeling, just like, man, my confidence got knocked out from underneath me. And I don't know where you went with that, but I just had to finally go, you know what, it'll happen when it happens. And it's not like I'm any dumber today than I was yesterday. I just this is where we're at, and we just got to keep going, and it was super discouraging. But it sounds like a little bit the same thing you're talking about. It's discouraging, but we just got to keep on keeping on, right?
absolutely. Yeah. And I may be a little dumber than I was because I've had some head injuries in the past, but
Oh crap. Well, man,
but yeah, it's timing's everything.
what do you think in that run, your career run, has been the biggest challenge to you?
Balance, balancing work life and home life, really, trying to maintain a successful marriage. And not be absent from my kids' lives and be a part of what they're doing and still keep up here on in the office, in front of the customers, trying to keep their lives and their projects as a priority, and yet make my family feel like they're a priority. And I've had, tons of failures and successes in that realm. So that's probably the hardest, I'd say.
You have mentioned, and I think maybe this is where you're going with what you just said, but you've mentioned that desire to please people 3 or 4 times now in the conversation. And what have you done, like as far as the conscious level? Because I've gathered just by watching you over the years that you've begun to figure out how to place boundaries on that and how to say no sometimes. Um, was that a conscious thing for you, or where'd you learn that?
10,000 hours is a steep mountain to climb to become a master, especially when the task at hand puts a relentless demand on your body. There is nothing casual about this sport. It's all in, all effort, all focus. It takes a lot from you, but the reward is unmatched. Mastery of oneself, an acute understanding of your weaknesses with an explosive sense of your strengths. Being able to complete the climb to mastery requires the proper nutrition. This is why it's important to take in a potent blend of electrolytes that is in tune with your output and brings strength to your goals. This potent blend is only found in salt electrolytes. Salt targets your depleted electrolyte levels with a boost of hydration and health. It gives your body the baseline recovery it needs.
I I don't know. I think it's probably just trial and error over the years. I've picked up a ton of hobbies. I've picked up a ton of things, and I'll start to head in that direction. And I've had to put those things aside multiple times. Um, just because they start to take focus away from what I feel is truly important, which is the family, and then the career really. Those two things are kind of that juggling act, and I am kind of like not quite to the point where you are, where you are incredible because you can commit to something and you just go in, and I've always noticed and admired you that you've had this incredible sense of balance, and uh, and I strive for that too. So you've been a great example for me there, and I've also been able to surround myself with some incredible people. I always try to find guys that I feel are, I'll say, better people than me. If that makes any sense. I feel like they're stronger, they're smarter, and they're more put together. So I try to surround myself with those kinds of people constantly. And I think a large part of that is I've surrounded with myself with successful people that are driven and good at what they do, and they have a good sense of balance, if that makes any sense. So,
Yeah, man. I think that's important for everybody to hear is the people you surround yourself with matter, right? You can't be,
absolutely.
if you're the top of the game, if you're the top of the crowd you hang out with, the only thing you have to look at is down, right? So yeah, you have these people, we call them mentors, right? People who have been there, and I don't know about you, but not every person that I would consider a mentor is a mentor in every area.
Absolutely not.
You know,
You nailed that one.
yeah, I've had guys that are like, they're a mentor as far as being like a triathlete. Like I can look up to this person
Hmm.
because they kick butt as a triathlete, but their marriage is terrible. And
Yep.
so they're not my mentor in their marriage. I'm looking at it with different eyes when I see that. That's and so we have these relationships in our world that you know they have pluses and minuses, right? Everybody's you use the term. they're better people than me. Maybe they're better at some things than you. They're not better
Fair
people
enough.
than you necessarily, because we all have our short sighted sides, right? Our blind spots. There's
Mhm.
yeah, stick those same guys on a drawing of a some drafting work and watch. Now all of a sudden you're the mentor, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. But I do like to find things in people that I admire, and then I do like to pursue a relationship with those guys to where I can learn from them. And I guess
Yes.
that's the end goal, right? Is to continue to learn from people and have them be positive influences in your life.
Yeah.
So, and I've got a pile of those. I'm I'm super grateful. I'm one of the luckiest guys in the world because of that. Surrounded by just incredible men. So,
Yeah. Well, you've done some. So you talk about that work life balance and kind of keeping up with your family and stuff. And you've done something here recently that I take a look at again from the outside, and I go, man, that's freaking cool. And it's you and your son have. He's racing mountain bikes and he's a beast. I don't understand the physics behind what happens there because he's a big dude, but he's
yeah,
fast like a little guy, and it's weird to me. I'm a mountain biker too, and so I understand the physics of how difficult it is to push weight up a hill, man. And he's bigger than I am, and he's way faster than I am. But but you have gotten on the trails with him and started. You guys spend a lot of time mountain biking together. So talk about that and the
yeah.
challenges that have come with that, right?
Well, it's varied, right? The challenges because I'm old and I'm broken. I've got a lot of years of bad decisions and good times behind me. Um, man, yeah, I've had two ankle surgeries. My last ankle surgery, I had lost one of the ligaments in there. I had broken it and just let it die because I'm stubborn and I don't go to the hospital. So I just lived on with a busted ankle. And so I had this great doctor reattached and put a cadaver's hamstring in my ankle and rebuilt my ankle. So I got about 80% capacity there. And then a year ago, I smoked my knee again. Um, Ended up three meniscus tears, some bone chips, and a bunch of other things, and a um, relocated or dislocated patellar tendon. So I had to have all of that stuff repaired. And so I'm struggling to hang with this kid who, like you said, is a monster. Um, he's 6'2" and just he's just a beast on a mountain bike. I've always been pretty good at downhill on a bike. I've just that lack of fear. I can kind of turn stuff off. And this kid snaps out of corners like I can't hang with. He actually snaps out of them, and I'm like pedaling in, trying to chase him down. But I'm on an e-bike now because my knee just won't handle it anymore. I don't know that there's any meniscus left, so it's that kind of bone on bone. And but it's incredible to go watch this kid grow and become the monster that he is. So. It's fun. We do a lot of trail riding. We get to ride in Oregon this year and ride some of that really cool, dense, loamy mountain stuff. And
Oh, that'd be
oh my
amazing.
gosh, I feel like I need to relocate my my life again to go live over there. It's incredible. Um, but it's fun to watch him grow and just become the man he's going to be. Um, Part of that is I've gotten him into the gym too. I've always been kind of a gym monkey. One of those gentlemen that I mentioned, just huge in my life. He's always been just larger than life, I guess I could say, right? He pulls trucks he's going to pull a truck for 26.2 miles this fall.
Well, so Arlo's going to be on here
Uh,
in a couple more episodes.
oh,
Yeah, in
nice.
about 2 weeks, he's coming on. We're going to talk about that truck pull. So,
Oh, that's good.
you guys who are tuning in, you're in for a treat when you get to meet this guy. So,
Oh my
talk about
gosh.
him a little bit, just as a kind of a preview.
Oh, the most gentle giant, intelligent beyond belief. He's got degrees in, I don't even know, biomechanics and physical education and all kinds of other stuff. He does deep tissue massage. He's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's done strongman. He's a monster of a volleyball player too. Just terrifying to be on the other side of the net of this dude. If in volleyball can be terrifying when you're standing against these guys.
Oh my gosh.
Um, just strong man like you wouldn't believe. Like I've always been pretty strong. I've lifted and I've always again surrounded myself by these monsters. And so me being strong above average strong is still about half of what these guys are. That's what's fun about it. Um,
So, Trevor, you mentioned he's going to be pulling a truck for a marathon distance, so 26.2
yeah,
miles, with a stinking harness on and a rope pulling a diesel pickup across the salt
in the salt
flats.
flats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's doing that in October, I believe he told me. Um, yeah, you got to know this guy, and it'll be fun to get on the episode. So that's a preview for
It will. Yeah, yeah.
when Arlo
He's a
Gagstein
wild
comes on
ride. You
here.
guys are going to enjoy him a lot.
Yeah, it'll be great. Um,
But those are the kinds of guys I try to surround myself with. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So that's living up to anything, even remotely in the world he operates in physically, and he's kind of one of those dudes that just kind of does what five people do.
Hmm.
He just does it all.
Absolutely. Dude, Shark Tank with that guy is always a blast, right? Every year for his birthday, we'd put him in the middle, and 5 to 7 guys would just jump in with him every 2 minutes for whatever age he was, 45 minutes straight, and just he never came out on the worst end of that, which was it shocked me every time.
It's pretty cool stuff,
He
man. So you found mentors. What what gets Trevor up in the morning these days, man?
Old age, man. I after this the whole ARE exam thing, I'm stuck. I wake up at 5 a.m. anyways now. I've always been kind of a late night guy, and after that whole process, it like rewired my brain. So now everybody in my home sleeps in, and I'm up at 5 regardless. So I love that time now. That's my quiet time. I get to spend some time on the back porch drinking some coffee and just kind of thinking about what's going on, getting my zen on, if you will.
Would you do me a
It's good. It's
favor?
calming.
Would you do
Yeah.
me a favor? Because you mentioned that back porch, man, and people don't realize where you live. You live up against the Wasatch Front Mountains, and the view out your back door is ridiculous. It's
Yeah, that
it's
back porch is pretty hot.
it's pretty amazing, man. So who in your
And
life has influenced you the most, would you say?
oh man, that's a tough question, Rye. I don't know that there's any single one. Not to avoid your question too hard, but I think it's a conglomeration of people. Um, like you said, aspects of admiration for different people and their talents and assets. Yeah, I don't know if there's any single person that's really driven me, or helped me realize myself. I think it is more of a group village type process for me, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Um, and I can name probably 50 of them if you want, but that'll get old and boring.
No, I think that's
Nobody on here knows half of them.
I think that speaks to something though, man, because I've in this conversation I've heard you mention a few people, and just the mention of their name, I see the emotion well up, right? Um, I think we all share that. I think there's that driven people can all speak of mentors, man, and they can all speak of that, how they affected their life, and freak, there's some deep emotion in there, man. You're not the only person to do exactly what you just did there. Where,
Yeah.
gosh, you start realizing how 30 years later the effect a certain person's had on you, and just it's like it's amazing. It's amazing to hear. So what I want people to take away from this is just the find those mentors, find those people who can challenge you, find those people who can hurt your feelings by telling you the truth, right? And listen to them. And you've mentioned several of those people who have just pushed you on. You see an area of weakness in your own life, but you find somebody to stick there who's going to challenge you and help you grow through that. And you know, great.
Funny. You mentioned one person, and I rebut with it almost feels like a disservice to each of those other people to name one. Does that make sense?
Mm. I could see it, but no,
That's fair.
no. I don't think. I guess I wouldn't take it that way, man. I would. Because I know some of the guys you're talking, or you haven't named names, but I know some of the guys who've been involved in your life are close enough there, and I think each one of them would be proud of what the other person's done in your world, right? That's the thing about it that I've noticed about people who are getting crap done are never resentful about people who are asking them
Yeah,
questions.
no,
You know, they're never critical.
absolutely.
They're encouragers. It's the people who are always critical of us are always the people who want to tear us down are never out there killing it, right? This is why you speak so highly of Arlo, is because he's not that kind of dude. You know, I've only sat and talked to Arlo a couple times in my life, but he's not that kind of dude, man.
Yeah.
He's going to build you up, right?
No, you're in for a treat.
Yeah, it's going to be a great time. I'm so looking forward to it, man. Um, Trevor, what is a book that you would recommend everyone read?
Hmm. I'm gonna feel pretty dumb here because I forgot the name of it, but it has to do with choosing discomfort. Um, Actually, it was a gift from Arlo. It's about, and I cannot remember the name of it for the life of me, but it's basically living in discomfort to grow, and uh, and I've learned that in my creative lifestyle where things begin to get stale, right? You kind of run into what's called like a writer's block or something like that. And because you're just going through the groove, doing your thing every day, it's the monotony of kind of doing the same thing, even though everything's different. And I found that sometimes I need to get out, and I'm one of the weirdos that loves to go out and I'll jump on my adventure bike or whatever, and I'll ride and I'll live in the dirt and I'll camp under the stars and live uncomfortably for a period of time. Um, have a couple hundred near death experiences along the way, and and I come back and I'm refreshed, and that discomfort has sparked something in me that creates creativity and drive to continue to be um, to serve and to deliver better services to the people that I'm working with and working for.
You just you just hit on something there that it's a little off subject, but you sort of, not because you were off
That's what we do,
subject, you
man.
were on
It's okay.
subject, but I'm going to bring up something off subject. How's that?
Yeah.
Where in that time when you're by yourself, you're out there doing something that's very uncomfortable, creativity comes, right? I just had this
Hmm.
experience where, well, this podcast, the idea to start this podcast came on a 20-hour drive, or I'm on a freeway out in the middle of freaking Oklahoma somewhere, and there's nothing but grass for as far as I can see in any direction, and that little white line just clicking by, man. And I'm don't have the radio on, I don't have a podcast playing, I just tire noise, right? And I'm thinking,
Yeah.
after a couple hours of that, I started getting very creative. Um, Talk about that a little bit, man. What's your thoughts on that idea?
Oh, it's absolutely 1,000%. I I just had a I had a project in northern Colorado that had been arranged for me outside of my timeline. if that makes sense. Um, in a vacuum, some other people made some decisions, and all of a sudden, I had to be at this project at Monday 9 a.m. And I had already had a family vacation planned in the mountains of Wyoming, clear up near the Nevada border, and there was no way I was going to be able to get all the way home. It's a 10-hour drive, and then turn around, get a rental car, and run all the way back there, and not neglect my family, right, and cut this trip short. So my lust for adventure and discomfort spawned. I threw my adventure bike in the back of my truck, and we drove the truck up and had a great time with the family. Good times. And then we unloaded that son of a gun, and I rode that thing for 9 hours straight. Um, it was fun because I got to choose this new dirt road that I'd never been on in my life, and it was occasionally treacherous, riding along the ridge lines, probably places I shouldn't have been alone, but it was good. It cut off like 40 miles of freeway, so it was worth it. All dirt, ride down, 52 degrees up on top of the mountain, just wondrous on the Bighorn Mountains of Wyoming. Drop down into the plains of Wyoming, and it's 102 degrees on a motorcycle, almost no wind protection, just hammering down the freeway. And the whole time I'm headed down to this project, I'm just in my own head. I don't listen to music when I ride. I literally just put my earbuds in, and it's all in my own headspace. And my wife calls me a little bit of a psychopath because of this, but I'm good. I love it. It's my space. Um, so I ride this 102 degrees, and then as you hit Laramie, the clouds come rolling in, and it's lightning and rain and hail and snow and wind for the next hour and a half. And I get to my hotel, and I'm refreshed, believe it or not. I took a shower and I feel great, and that project was a riot. I just was filled with creativity and excitement, and just that discomfort of freezing my can off in the rain and snow was just, I don't know what it spurs. Something, you can call it monkey brain, you can call it whatever you want, but it or lizard brain, whatever they call it. But man, it spawns something inside of us that allows us to be more creative and get into places of our brain that we can't access when we're comfortable, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's just too much noise, right? It's just that constantly being entertained,
Yeah,
constantly being stimulated. But when you just have that, you're in that zone. It's a beautiful thing. So, yeah,
yeah,
that's awesome, man. Um, this podcast is called the Go Earn Your Salt podcast. And when you heard that term, when you hear Go Earn Your Salt, what does that mean to you?
it means putting the work in, um, going above, beyond, pushing through. Um, like I said, I've done a lot of things over my life, just ridiculous things that we've not gotten into, and maybe next time.
Yeah.
But every single one of them is just pushing through. When if you stop, you may die. If you push through, you won't gain that edge on your competition. If you push through, you earn something that everybody out there can't relate to.
Mm. Oh man, that's beautifully said. Oh. Um, you want to move on to some lighter questions?
Sure, man.
Well, you mentioned the adventure bike thing, but what's your absolute bar none favorite pastime?
Dude, I've got so many. I love the dirt bike. I love the mountain bike. I love just being in the gym doing strongman type stuff. Watching my kids grow and get strong. I mean, my 17-year-old just joined the 1,000-pound club, so that's incredible
All
for
right,
me to
homie.
go see that
So,
kind of stuff
to
happen.
those of us who are not like gym rats, what the heck is a 1,000 pound club?
Oh, it's your squat, your deadlift, and your bench. equals 1,000 pounds, whatever configuration it is. So uh,
So,
the kid is 17 and he's out pulling me on deadlift now. I claim it's because I'm old and broken, but I don't know.
so my 98-pound bench press is I got a long way to go in the other two to get to 1,000. Huh?
Yeah, yeah, you got a ways to go, bud.
Holy crap! All right, so you go to a restaurant and you order a hamburger, and they put the veggies on below the patty. Is that okay? Is that even moral?
This is gonna hurt your feelings because I uh, I don't eat bread. I have some weird situations, so every burger I eat's either lettuce wrapped or it don't matter. I just throw it on the plate and
Dude.
rock and roll.
So your veggies are surrounding the patty.
Absolutely, man. It don't matter whether it's on top or bottom because it's there.
Son of a gun. All right, we'll just cut that crap out of the episode. I don't even know. I mean, we're obviously not on the
That's
same
fair.
page there.
Yeah, yeah. That friendship is gone. No, I'm
Oh
just
my
kidding.
gosh, cut it out. No. Uh, have you ever been in a fight?
Yes, I've been in quite a few actually. Thankfully, most of them were a long, long ago. Nothing recent. Had a couple of close calls, but yeah, it's something I hate to say this, but I think everybody should probably experience at least once in their life.
Getting punched in the
Um,
face?
there's nothing like being hit, man, and having your every plan that you thought you were going to be this badass warrior just goes to hell. Every kid fantasizes like they're going to be amazing, right? When the thing actually hits, and all of a sudden you're scrambling.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, we joke about that a lot in the jiu-jitsu world, right? About the guy who sees red, and then the first time he gets on the
oh
mat,
yeah,
he's just like, I can take anyone. I just see red, man. And then the first time he gets in a jiu-jitsu match, he understands. Oh, seeing red doesn't help me at all.
oh man, every little guy in jiu-jitsu with more than a white belt is proof of that. They're
Yeah.
just they're dangerous. They're just flat dangerous. And if you don't know what you're doing, you're hosed.
Yeah. Man, scariest moment of your life.
Um, I don't know if you heard about this one, but Mother's Day, quite a few years ago, family and I took off. I had just detailed and spruced up my wife's side by side so that we could, just a nice thing for her for Mother's Day. And she said she wanted to go for a ride, so we took off and went up in the mountains. It's Mother's Day, so it's cold out. We got some light jackets on, and we're up in the mountains of Utah, bouncing around. We've done that a ton of times, and we ended up getting stuck. And I buried the side by side in a snowbank. Uh, and lo and behold, when I detailed her rig, I took all the recovery gear out.
Mm,
Didn't think to put it back in. Didn't think to put anything back in. So we were without. I mean, I've made a kind of a halftime career of going up and recovering people for years. It's just one of the things I like to do is go up and pull people out of the dumb decisions that they made. Well, I was in the middle of a dumb decision on a Sunday night at 5 p.m. and the sun's going down, and so we uh, we dug for about an hour, and then it started to rain and snow, and we're at 9,000 feet.
mm.
Um, so I made the decision to send my family down the mountain. I said, "Get out, just follow the road and go as fast as you can." And I dug for another hour until it was dark, and I was soaked. Couldn't get the rig out. So I started to run, and I ended up catching them at about mile 12.
Wow.
Ran down this mountain. We ended up going 14 miles. My boy was in like Converses. It was freezing cold, pitch dark, no moon, of course, because you couldn't have a moon to see the trail on. And and yeah, that was probably the scariest time, thinking that I probably killed my family.
Mm. How old
But
were you
we
kiddos?
uh we broke into a barn, and I found it down below. I broke into a barn and I was gonna sleep. in the hay bales and just try to keep everybody warm for the night and figure out a fire at some point. Um, and just before we went to bed down for the night, I was dying of thirst. So I said, okay, let's go see if we can find some water. So we step out, and there's a little county road there. And these just as soon as we got to the road, these lights come around the corner. And so we're like waving sticks and rocks and throwing things and trying to get this guy's attention. And it turns out it was the county sheriff's department. Um, my wife had somehow gotten a message out to one of my friends who was search and rescue, um, at the one point where she had half a bar of service, and he got a partial message and was able to start sending people out. And so we were rescued at like 2 a.m., frozen and covered in mud and wet and soaked, but it's something that the kids will never forget, right? Keep pushing on. I mean, they might
Yeah.
be traumatized for life,
I bet you if you
but keep
asked
pushing
them,
on.
I bet you if you asked those
Oh man,
kids, it'd be a fond memory.
no.
Oh,
It's funny now, but it's not a fun memory.
it wasn't fun for them, huh?
No, no. My son was little tiny, and my daughter actually, she was running triathlon at the time for junior high, so she was like, "This is great, 14 miles is no big deal." But my son was really young, and he was struggling, and my wife was struggling through this, and yeah, it was a bad deal.
Shoot, man. That's legit. All right. Uh, what's next, man? What's a bucket list challenge you have for your future?
Um, Possibly owning my own business, maybe starting a firm, maybe purchasing a firm. Um, Kind of seeing what comes next in terms career wise. I want to travel more. I want to be flexible enough to work hybrid to where I could work from the top of a mountain. Um, my job is pretty flexible that way, and I'd love to be able to tailor my career to facilitate that,
Mm,
if that makes any sense.
yeah.
I think it could be a lot of fun. And again, going back to that creativity, if I'm a little uncomfortable, then maybe that creativity will flow a little more freely.
Oh, yeah. I hear where you're going with that little career discomfort, maybe, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, my friend. Well, listen, thanks for coming on. It was an honor to have you.
Thanks for the opportunity, and the discomfort.
Yeah, brother.
I'm sure some creativity will bloom from it.
Trevor, go earn your salt, my man.
Thanks, my friend. Bye bye.
Hey, you've just finished up this episode, and I've got to know, do you know someone who's a getting after it kind of person? Someone who is earning their salt every day? If so, I would like to have them on the show. So have them message me directly at the Go Earn Your Salt podcast on Instagram. Let's see if we can get them on the show. Have a great day. You know what to do. Go earn your salt.